The member for Memramcook-Tentramar.
Mr. Speaker, this government's speech from the throne to open the second session of the 59th Legislative Assembly on November 20th promised a new covenant on governing that would include collaboration between parties. They haven't seen enough of that so far. One of the commitments in the throne speech was to work with other parties to develop a position for a legislative officer responsible for science and climate change. I thought this announcement was a step in the right direction, considering the recent IPCC report that found we have already hit 1 degree of warming and are on track to hit 1.5 degrees Celsius as soon as 2030. Considering the urgency, when will the Premier collaborate with myself and my colleagues to introduce legislation to create a legislative officer responsible for science and climate change?
The Honourable Premier.
So, Mr. Speaker, the member opposite, brings up a valid point. It was in our throne speech, but it is something that we haven't got done yet, Mr. Speaker. I guess needless to say, we're not complete yet, Mr. Speaker. We haven't finished the work here, and we'll continue to drive and make changes. And this is obviously one of the priority areas. And obviously we get back in the fall session, but prior, hopefully, to work on this and have it set up so in the fall we're able to start meaningfully understanding just what does that mean. Is it a new position? Is it a redefined position in some way? What does that actually mean? Because at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to create just another office for the sake of creating another office. I want to ensure that it actually has a mandate to do what it must, to be independent and to be a judge, and but to do that in a way that's meaningful. So I'm interested to pursue that, and we will continue to make it a priority. It's just not done yet, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Memramcook-Tentramar.
Monsieur le Président, j'apprécie la réponse. Et dans son discours du trône, le gouvernement est aussi engagé à établir un comité multipartite chargé d'élaborer une stratégie pour atteindre nos objectifs d'émissions d'ici 2030. Au cours de l'été 2016, le comité spécial sur les changements climatiques a fait le tour de la province pour voir avec les Néo-Brunswickois les meilleurs moyens d'atteindre ces objectifs. Et son rapport contenait 85 recommandations que tous les partis ont approuvées. One of those commitments that made the Climate Change Action Plan endorsed by this government is the creation of a standing committee on climate change to receive annual reports on progress towards responding to climate change. When will the Premier move a motion to create a permanent all-party standing committee on climate change to deal with responding to the climate change emergency?
The Minister of Environment and Local Government.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to just correct the member opposite. Excellent question, but it may be I lost it in the translation, but it does say that the member opposite said there was 85 action items and there's really 118, so it might have been a translation thing. But going to the question on how we move forward with the recommendations in the Climate Change Action Plan and the information and the questions that the member opposite raised, the Premier's right. We're working on some of those things with regards to a legislative officer, reporting process, and I think it would be best if we did sit down at some point and define what that means and how that goes forward so that it makes sense for New Brunswickers as well. I don't think there's one person in this province that I've met in the last 6 months that doesn't believe that climate change and reducing our emissions is important. Everybody's on the same page with this, and in the next coming weeks or months, we'll be contacting the members and deciding how we.
Minister.